Hello everybody, and since the last tier list did pretty well, I thought it'd be interesting to do a Monsterverse based tier list this time. So our categories are pretty simple. The garbage and the garbage, the strong guys up top, and a secret surprise, to some at least, will show itself soon. So first, let's handle the goobers, the fodder, the trash. Skullcrawlers kinda suck compared to everything else. I mean, like, they're being cut by swords and stuff. The same is true of warbats. Of course, they're above skullcrawlers, but they're hurt by missiles. Well, adult Kong is definitely not baby tier. Baby Kong is kinda trash. I mean, he's cut by helicopter blades. That's really bad. So the Kraken fights Kong from the anime point of the timeline a lot better than warbats do, but to be fair, they do fight adult Kong, so I think theirs probably actually reasonable. The giant crawler is a bit weird. It doesn't do anything, but it's meant to show off Mecha Godzilla's power, but even 40% Mecha Godzilla split it in half. Unless we're being funny, Doug doesn't do anything. Yeah, he kinda wrestled with adult Kong for food, but clearly Kong wasn't really motivated there. I think base form Kong is just pretty much the same throughout the movies. It is mentioned he got a little stronger in New Empire, but his prime was during Kingdom Kong, but he also has no experience. Some stuff says that GVK Kong is more muscular. Other stuff says he's a fat fuck with a beer gut. Discussing the inner workings of the Monsterverse is already enough of a pain in the ass. Tiamat during Survivor Instinct is roughly about the same strength as base form Kong. She's actually faster than Kong, but she gets grappled and dealt with multiple times. The two can hurt each other though, so they should be about the same. Gamazotz was clearly beating Kingdom Kong, but it is mentioned if they fought in the Hollow Earth again that Kong would probably win. The bottom of this list is probably the Titan Hunter. That thing got suplexed by Kong extremely badly, and it's kind of ass. It got mauled by the weird spine prowler cat thing that Kong dealt with easily. Amalek by statements is relative with GVK Kong, with Kong being able to break off chunks of him, and Amalek being able to stab Kong back. And Amalek does have a one-shot condition with his psychic attack. If he lands that on Kong, it is confirmed that Kong would die. Kong is faster though, so I think that would be hard to land. The same is true of Tiamat, since she's even faster than Kong. Camazotz versus Amalek is interesting, but I'd probably say Camazotz since he likes to sky camp. Well, technically a Titan, the Drowned Viper is trash, so he goes where he belongs. Camazotz is also on Fraud Watch. This guy got knocked out by a plane being near his face. Yeah, I know he's light aversive, but he got knocked out. That's extremely bad. The Ion Dragon is a bit strange. He has the power to actually hurt Godzilla, which Kong never really does. But then he's literally torn to shreds seconds later. And he can only draw blood from Godzilla's gills, which are a weak spot. Since that's Pink Tiamat too, we can assume she's stronger than base Tiamat by that point, but we don't know how much. New Empire was 3 years after Godzilla vs. Kong, so that Tiamat is a way stronger creature. Methuselah has one statement comparing him to Rodan in strength, and we'll get to why that's relevant later. But other than that, he doesn't do anything. I seem to have forgot another Skullcrawler. Ramrak put up a decent fight against the weakened Kong, but he's clearly lost. Speaking of trash, this loser, the rival got hyped up so much, mainly to try to argue for Kong himself beating Godzilla, because this doofus beat up 5-year-old Godzilla. I'm not even going to bring in that apparently he might have even had friends. I'm just going to bring up the fact that the weakest Godzilla in all the Monsterverse, by far, I'm just going to bring up the fact that the weakest version of Godzilla in all the Monsterverse thought he would beat his ass. Dominion Godzilla is literally starving to death. He mentions this multiple times. He's weakened. He's tired. He hasn't slept in years. He used up most, if not all, of his energy in King of the Monsters. He's so weakened, his atomic breath barely functions. His dorsal plates don't glow anymore. Yeah, this is the guy who would beat the shit out of the rival. And how do we know that? Well, he's stronger than Tiamat, who ate this loser. She ripped his skull off, too. Honestly, I don't even care if the fight happened in water, because we know that Kong could at least put up somewhat of a fight against Godzilla. Yet a much weaker Tiamat ripped the rival limb from limb. The only thing you can use to try to defend him is the fact that Godzilla sharpened his dorsal plates to go fight him, but considering Ghidorah dropped him from space on them, yeah, they probably were a little chipped or something. The Shinamura is weird. They don't have good strength feats, or they are hard carried by their regeneration. Extremely hard carried. Kong could never kill the Shinamura. Most of Tiamat's combat strategies are useless against the Shinamura. Amazot's might be able to bully it with his screams, but he still can't kill it. The janitor fish drew a little bit of blood from Dominion Goji's gills, and then he ripped its spine out. In the same boat is nuked up Skyla. It's mentioned that Kong would have literally torn her to pieces, and Godzilla had no issue with her whatsoever when he was close to, if not at his full base power. She literally bounced off him. Now, the Mutos are weird, the ones from 2014, because on one hand, they were actively nerfing Godzilla with their EMP effect. At the same time, though, they were actually ripping right into Godzilla's hide. The two of them were actually going to beat him to death. But at the very least, as a duo, they're absurdly strong. One-on-one, they definitely performed less than guys like Tiamat. But at the same time, if they're ripping into a stronger Godzilla than Dominion, I really can't see them being below Dominion. We have no way to quantify how much the EMPs weakened him, unlike in later films. But the fact Godzilla was still willing to actively fight and wasn't constantly whining about needing food, and in fact came fresh out of his lair, still means that he's pretty strong. I mean, it's Godzilla. He is one of the strongest. Scar King is weaker than Kong, pretty undeniably. He is faster than Kong, more agile, and more experienced with weapons, so he did throw Kong for a loop for a bit. But it is mentioned in the novelization that if they kept fighting, Scar would have died, which is why he called Ice Dog to murder Kong. Now, above 2014 Goji goes the Muto Prime. Well, pretty simple, she fought a stronger Godzilla and nearly beat him to death. Yes, I know the author has tried to say that Muto Prime's weirdly hard carried by her special Godzilla hacks, and they're less good against other titans, but her main hacks are things like generating shockwaves. She causes earthquakes. If she's punching you with earthquakes and you're not Godzilla level durable, she's gonna mess you up pretty bad. The only thing you could really say is that she's slower than Godzilla, so maybe someone like Kong can do something. But whenever the author mentioned that Kong would be able to defeat Muto Prime, he hadn't even seen GVK yet, so I'm just gonna dismiss that immediately. Base Axe Kong would get destroyed by Muto Prime. She would just destroy the axe and then pummel him to death. But I do think Beast Glove Kong is stronger than the Muto Prime, at least in terms of punching power. As much of a fraud as it makes the pink form look, he is still stronger than his base form, and Kong knocked him flat on his ass. Dagon is in roughly the same boat as 2014 Goji, and while we did see him get absolutely brutalized, this was just the end of their fight. Awakening Goji should be roughly the same as Dagon. Now here's a weird one in Mecha Godzilla. Mecha Godzilla fights the weakest on-screen version of Godzilla, and yes, he tosses him around, but he can't do all that much damage. Despite landing countless combos on him, the only time he ever actually wounds Godzilla is with the Proton Scream, which slightly singes his chest and gives him a black eye. Now there are some statements that imply he could actually kill Godzilla with the Kiss of Death, but others disagree, with Wingard saying that if Godzilla's insides are as tough as his outsides, that MG can't do it. Mechagodzilla also clearly struggled with a weakened Kong. Kong was losing, right? Obviously. But that Kong just had his ribs broken by Godzilla 10 minutes ago. The fact that Mechagodzilla didn't literally rip him in half is really bad for the robot. We also do have blatant confirmation Muto Prime would one-shot Mechagodzilla. Narratively, though, he is stated above normal Kong, and that's why they gave Kong the Beast Glove to begin with. So I think MG slightly above base Kong is okay. For reference, though, I think GVK Godzilla is probably somewhere up here. The art book mentions that Goji was at 50% when fighting Mechagodzilla, but this is clearly objectively false. It is mentioned in every source ever that Godzilla was notably tired. And if you're at half strength, you're not that tired. He is literally huffing and puffing at the start of the Mechagodzilla fight, which is the same as 2014 Goji after the Mutos beat his ass for over an hour while they were actively nerfing him. So yeah, end of GVK Goji, he's really bad. He's really weak. But during the point of the movie where he's in and not fucking around, he would be pretty hard to beat. Now, I do think this might be a little controversial, but New Empire teammates should beat Beast Glove Kong. She was actually able to hurt Godzilla, whereas Kong knocked him down but couldn't really do much. She is insanely less durable than her attack strength, though. One blast of atomic breath turned her into sushi. Though to be fair, it is noted that France Goji would tear Kong to pieces too. So I'm just gonna put base Godzilla above. I really don't see a reason why he wouldn't be able to handle Tiamat and Kong. They would just give him a harder fight. The book also mentions that he's probably at his full power again. It depends on how reliable you think the human's energy readings are, and I think that they're kind of bad, considering their inverse radiation readings suggest that his atomic breath is thousands of times weaker than Mechagodzilla's beam. Clearly that's not true. So we can confidently confirm that they are wrong about Goji by a massive degree. To be honest though, base form Godzilla is more or less in his own tier. The same is also true for his 2019 self. They're basically at his full strength. Full power Godzilla is the strongest creature on the planet, with 2 exceptions, and he can even put up somewhat of a fight against those 2, even in his base form. Mothra's weird, because she doesn't do too much in King of the Monsters, but there's really nothing that definitively proves that New Empire Mothra is stronger. You can make the assumption, because of her feats, but nothing to prove it definitively. If you put any faith in Monarch's energy readings, they're basically confirmed identical. And Mothra's actually very close to base Godzilla. She's weaker by a good bit, but she's considerably close, meaning the same applies to Rodan. I'll just let the salt wash over people, but Mothra has feats against people stronger than base form Godzilla, and even in Kong's own movie has better feats than him. Kong managed to block an attack from Shimo, but he was clearly being overwhelmed. Mothra flew into an attack from Shimo, smacked her in the face, and Shimo didn't like that very much. She also knocked over a bloodlusted evolved Goji when he was trying to crush Kong again before lasering his face off. KOTM Mothra's webs were also able to restrain Ghidorah's heads, which Godzilla struggles to do in melee. The only thing holding Mothra back really is the fact she's not very durable. Rodan is clearly a good bit weaker than Ghidorah, and yet a fight with her and him resulted in Mothra almost losing. Her stinger did one-shot Rodan though, so I really don't see how someone like Kong or Tiamat even lasts against Mothra really. She could just spam God Rays, spam webs, and then put a hole in their skulls. It's that simple. Forget to put Legacy of Monsters Goji here. He's had a bit of time to recover after the Muto Prime fight, but really, I don't know where he should be exactly. He doesn't do a whole lot. He's definitely stronger than he was in 2014, but I don't know if he's quite at GVK level yet. Still though, it'd be probably hard for Muto Prime to beat him. Now, Charged X Kong is interesting in that he actually has the power to hurt. He actually has the power to hurt GVK Godzilla. Godzilla literally won their fight though. Nothing really quirky or funny about that. Godzilla tanked a triple blast charged axe to the face, and it didn't split his skull open or even cut him up really. And we know Godzilla was holding back still at that point. Now, it's possible he could absorb attacks from full power base Goji, but I don't see why Godzilla wouldn't just tear him apart at that point. Slightly above base form is when he feeds on the power plant. It's clearly not that big of an amp, considering it's A, less than 2 times, and B, mentioned in the book to be filling up to his absolute max. Now, because of that, we can definitely put King Ghidorah here. Ghidorah was clearly overpowering base form Godzilla in a weakened state, with it being confirmed that he is low on power. And because of that, I just don't see France Goji being able to do anything. In the same sort of ballpark though should be base form of all Godzilla. Pink Goji is twice as strong as his base form. He's also more durable at a molecular level. However, he's really stupid and lets himself get beat up a lot by blunt force trauma. He could literally tear Kong to pieces if he so chose, yet he didn't. If Ghidorah needs more justification, he easily blasted through full power Godzilla's atomic breath, leaving a hole in his chest when he did so. He was toying with Rodan. He's confirmed to be in his own league above Godzilla and the other Titans, so yeah, I think that's pretty solid. He's also able to fight relatively well with Boston amped Godzilla, at first at least. Now the thing about why this power-up is far stronger than France, this Godzilla had so much power he was going to blow up, and it was exponentially increasing by the second. By the end of the battle, he actually reached the same level of power that Spiral Pink Godzilla has. He just can't control it, so he would have blown up. Now, an interesting one there is Shimo. Shimo tanks attacks stronger than what were hurting Ghidorah at his full base strength, but her own attack power is pretty bad. We've seen in the cave paintings that base form Godzilla in the past was able to match Shimo in a beam clash, so either past Godzilla's up here, or Shimo's attacks just aren't that good. She did mess up Kong pretty bad, but Kong's not all that durable compared to guys like Godzilla and Ghidorah. We also just have blatant confirmation that Shimo dropped so much ice on Ghidorah, it caused ice crystals to explode across the entire planet, which is far stronger than any ice blast she showed in New Empire. Based on how Ghidorah was also caught pretty much off guard when hitting the water and had fresh wounds, this suggests that either Shimo camped him or is actively teaming up with Godzilla in their fight. Slightly stronger than Shimo is Supercharged Evolved Godzilla, or Spiral Pink, as I like to call him. He literally did overpower Shimo. She did tank an attack from him pretty well, and she showed no real injuries after that, so these two are pretty relative. End of Boston fight Goji would be about the same strength, which should be slightly above base form Ghidorah. Now above that, however, would be amped up Ghidorah. He one-shot nuke amped Goji really badly. Even with partial amounts of his electric attack, he was ripping through his hide and damaged him so badly that he has scars until GVK, despite Godzilla having some regeneration. He also manhandled him and dropped him from space. And if that's not good enough for you, he was literally snapping his dorsal plates. I don't see Pink snapping the plates of his own powered up self. Now between these two, it's kind of interesting. I favor Ghidorah mostly because of his already known advantages over Godzilla. Regeneration, energy absorption, stuff like that. There's actually a second power-up Ghidorah gets by feeding on Mothra's sacrifice energy, which would obviously skyrocket him even further. But it's pretty clear who's number one. Burning Godzilla is confirmed stronger than Evolved Godzilla by the person who wrote New Empire's script, which I think holds a lot more precedent than the novel author who's using A, a different script, and B, whose book contradicts the movie at multiple points. Such as Miss Kong Lady Eileen Andrews saying that Scar King is stronger than France Goji and Glove Kong at the same time. Clearly not correct. And Burning Godzilla literally obliterated twice amped Ghidorah. Ghidorah and Shimo being somewhat relative is also pretty consistent. She's compared to Ghidorah a few times, and some guides even say that Ghidorah is stronger than Shimo. So that's it for the list. See you guys next time.